Morning, guys. I'm Lucia Mogale. I'll be doing the training today for auditing and action plan. So, guys, I want to provide you with the introduction. So, as you have seen our bios that were sent through in the group. So, we'll basically go straight to the training. I hope everybody can hear me clearly, guys.
Yeah, yes, I can hear it clearly for myself.
Okay. Can we please, guys, mute our microphones because there's echoes coming through. So these are the contents that will be going through in our presentation. So I've tried to summarize the presentation so that I don't give you guys a lot of information and you end up confused. So I've tried to put it as simple as I can, and I hope you guys will. And as we go, guys, I hope I won't be too fast. And we'll have the QAs at the end of the presentation. We'll start with the introduction, and also we'll go to what are the aims of the audit, why is auditing important, what are the benefits of auditing, the audit process. So those are the stages of auditing. So we'll go through also the internal and external audit, also the audit cycle, example of the items that might be included in the audit sheet. So I'll also go through some of the audit sheets that I have from the company that I previously worked for. We'll also go through the action plan, and then that will be our conclusions. So in the introduction, basically we'll start with we need to explain what is auditing so that everybody can understand. Sorry guys, let me do this. Need to adjust here something. I can't see. Sorry about that. So what is a health and safety audit? So an audit is a methodological, independent, and documented assessment of a business system and processes in which it is measured against the regulated criteria to make sure health and safety standards are being upheld. Organizations should have a management system in place to ensure that safety processes continue to be maintained. And so this is the definition of an audit, guys. An audit, we know that is a documented assessment, meaning that it's something that we use to measure the health and safety management system of the company to see that whether the standards that they have been set by the company, are they being upheld by the company? Is the company also making sure that the management system that is in place to ensure the safety of the employees, is it being maintained or not? So the audit, they say this will ensure that the continued welfare, health, and safety of the employees within the organization via the systemic appraisal on on-site procedures and processes. So when we do an audit, obviously, guys, we do an audit in order to find out if the health and safety system that we have in the company, is it maintained, and do we have to do any improvements or not? And also it can help companies to comply with the legal duties promoting well-being. We all know that we have legal obligations as companies in terms of the health and Occupational Health and Safety Act. So each and every company, they have an obligation to ensure that they promote well-being for their employees. So that's why we are doing the audits for that. So in terms of, because each and everything, we need to know what is the aim. We cannot just, in terms of health and safety, we don't just do things. We need to know why we have to do this audit. So though the businesses may differ in sizes and industries in which they operate, for example, a warehouse will have a different regulation to an office. An audit in general will look at, to assess the following factors. We know that we work in different industries, but at the end of the day, the regulations must be upheld. So we know construction will differ from mining regulations, but at the end of the day, the audit, it's aimed at assessing these following factors: the strength and weaknesses of the current system. We check if the system that we have, is it working for us? Is it working for the company? What is the strength of the current system, and what is the weaknesses? So when we do an audit, we are measuring those things. We're looking at what can we improve, what can we keep it as it is, and any changes that we have to do. How does the system perform within the aims of the organization? We also check at the system and what the organization has management commitment, basically. So we know that the company, the senior management, they make commitments in terms of health and safety. So the system will measure if those commitments or the aims of the organizations are being met. And also, another aim, if the company is fulfilling its legal obligations within the industry. We know that the health, in terms of health and safety, we have a construction industry, we have mining industry, manufacturing industry. So an audit, when we do an audit, we are going to check whether, as a company, are we fulfilling what the law says in terms of the industry that we are within. Then we will find out when we do the audits. And also, if a proper performance reviewing system is in place. We know that also when it comes to health and safety, we have to review all the time the performance of the system. Whether the system, is it working for us? If it's not working in certain areas, what do we need to do? That's why we have to review our risk assessment. We need also to amend certain documents, the policies, the plans, the procedures. We can always amend them. So that's the aim of the audit. So basically, an audit is a tool that we can use so that we can be able to measure if the health and safety management system of the company, is it working for the company, or there is also some gaps that we need to rectify. So we'll say, why is auditing important? So ladies and gents, we all know that in terms of the law, our aim as health and safety officers and professionals is also to make sure that we uphold the law, and we make sure that we also consider the health and safety and well-being of the employees. So that is why it's one part of that's why auditing is important. Once you have a health and safety procedure in place, there may be the temptation to think that you have done all you need to, and that your business is set for the future. However, an audit is important and essential because it will help us to reduce the risk of personal traumas or injuries, prevent material loss from a business, promote employees' morale, ensure customer confidence, appropriate workplace precautions are in place, and also for legislative requirements. The law in place require facilities meet certain safety standards as a safety audit can help to ensure those standards are met. So basically we can see that here on the why is auditing important, we have a health and safety management system, and we are always reminded that we shouldn't also let our guard down or relax and say we have a system, it's working, everything is in place, everything is perfect. We only know that that one is not possible, because there will always be some gaps. There will always be somewhere where we need to improve. So that's why we need to continue auditing to check whether the health and safety management system that we have, is it working or it's not working? Because at the end of the day, that is our duty to make sure that no personnel or people that are the employees in the company, we minimize the injuries, the incidents that is. So if we continue to audit, we continue using this auditing tool, then we'll be able to identify if there's any gaps in the system. Also, we can prevent material loss from the business, like the second point there. We know that also safety, although most of the company, they don't see it that way, that safety can prevent a lot of material, I mean, in terms of money, they can save the company a lot of money, but it does, guys, because if we can be able to conduct this audits, depend on the company into how they want to present the audits, maybe monthly, because most of the companies, the audits, we do them monthly. So each and every month we conduct the audit so that we can be able to see if the system that we have is working. And also to promote employee morale. We know that if the guys, let's take it on site, they see us walking around, conducting audits, checking things, they also feel that the company does care about them, and that will boost their morale. And also it will ensure customer confidence. We know, guys, that our customers, meaning that in other areas, the clients, we need to have that confidence. The clients need to have a confidence in a company to see that this company, it complies with the law. And also to make sure when we audit, appropriate workplace precautions are in place, that when we are auditing, we can identify in other areas if there is no precautions. So when we go around conducting audits, we can see, okay, these precautions are in place. Here, maybe there's nothing we can improve here, we can do this, we can do that. So we need also to look at that, if the workplace has proper precautions in place to protect the employee. And lastly, is the legislative requirements, the law, that the law in place, they require facilities or company to have certain standards, safety standards. So a safety audit can help us to ensure that those standards are met. So when we do the audit, we are able to measure. So it's a measuring tool to see that the standard that we have set for ourselves, are we meeting them? If not, then we can ask ourselves why, so that we can be able to sit down and come up with other ways in which we can ensure that we are meeting the standard that we have set for ourselves. So in terms of what are the benefits for auditing, what can a company benefit from auditing? Firstly, it says it can identify problems. If there are problems lacking behind the scenes, this can lead to accidents and other negative consequences for a business. So if we are auditing, we can be able to identify, whilst we are busy conducting an audit, if there's any problems, if there is anything that we have missed that can cause serious problems or consequences for the business, then we can be able to deal with that problem that we have identified during the audit. And secondly, credentials. If you are bidding for clients or looking into new business, you will find that the majority of companies expect you to have a proper health and safety procedure in place. So basically, guys, we know that the credentials are very important. Each and every company, they need to ensure that there's safety in terms of safety, they are on top of their games because that's what our clients look at. They will also ask for certain documents. They will look for the safety statistics in terms of injuries, incidents, and all that, so that they can be able to give us a business. So they also help us, auditing will also help us in that regard, in terms of the company credentials. It can also, the benefits, one of the benefits for auditing is it can save the company some money. A health and safety audit provides a calculated analysis of a procedure and provides fact-based changes to be implemented. So basically, we know that in terms of the health and safety audit, it will provide a calculated analysis, meaning that everything that we're going to do, it will be based on facts. It won't be thumb sucking. So we would know if there is any, like for instance, if there's engineering controls that needs to be implemented in a manufacturing company, let's say that this thing will be calculated. It won't be just somebody coming up with something and saying, okay, we need to put this guard here, we need to also put this equipment here and that. No, it will be calculated because it will be coming out from an audit that we have identified that this needs to be done in order for the company to be able to save money. And saving money also, it will be in terms of minimizing injuries. So if we can be able to put a health and safety audit, it will provide those kind of analysis for the procedures that we have in the company, in terms of the company.
Sure, you're not making me cry.
So the law are abiding. There are different regulations and laws in place to ensure safety within different industries. If you are not abiding by these laws, it can lead your business to getting into trouble with the authorities or possibly being shut down. So we all know what the law says, guys. We are required to conduct this audit by the law because they are checking if we are adhering to the law, and we are also making sure that we're protecting our employees. So if we do not conduct the audits as often as we should, then we can find ourselves in trouble. So it's also important that we look at this, meaning that we don't want the companies to end up being having fines or closing, shutting down. So we need to conduct. So those are the benefits for auditing, because sometimes people can ask, or the company senior management can ask, why do we have to have all these audits? Because the audits, when it comes to external audits, it's not it can be expensive because of the consultants or the guys that are coming in to do the audits for us. Obviously, it's independent companies that will obviously have a fee for that. And some of the audits, they might not take a day, they might come for the whole week. So they will be having a fee for each day that they are there, or the hours charged per hour or per day. So some of the companies may be hesitant in terms of wanting to conduct audits. So these are some of the benefits that you, as a safety professional, you can put forward to the company, explaining to them why is it important for us to be conducting, or what are we going to benefit from these audits that we are conducting. It's either ourselves, or it might be independent companies that are conducting audits for us. Sorry. So in terms of the audit process, because an audit it has a process where it starts and where it ends. So basically, we have three stages of the audit process. So the pre-audit preparations, which involves you gathering information, referring to the company records and documents. We all know, guys, that when we are having an audit on site or in your company, the first thing that we have to do is to gather information, is to gather the records and the documents of the company. That will be your health and safety management system. That will be your health and safety files, all the information that the auditor would like to see before they can start with the audit. So we gather everything, making sure that we have it. When the auditor requests for the documents, we are able to produce the documents for the auditor. So, and when we come to the auditing process itself, which involves collecting the information, like I said before, about the health and safety system in place and assessing their effectiveness. Meaning that when an audit is conducted, we know it will depend on the auditor, whether the auditor, they want to start by checking the activities on site, or checking the activities in a factory, or checking the activities in the mine, or they want to start with the documentation. It would depend on the auditor, but we have to have our house in order. We have to have our documents ready for the auditor to avoid us running around trying to find documents, looking for documents while the auditor is there. Some of the auditors might be impatient. So we need to get our stuff, everything ready for the audit, because we know that an audit is something that it is planned. We plan it that the audit is going to take place on this day. Then everybody knows that there will be an audit that will be taking place. And also we are going to assess, the auditor is assessing the safety system and its effectiveness. So basically what will happen, if the auditor starts on site, he will go around, he or she that will go around, obviously it's a team, also the company management will be involved, and you as a safety officer will be involved as well. So we'll gather information on site. They can either take serial numbers of the equipment, the tools, the safety harnesses. They will either check the behavior of how people are working, and they will come and also check if it correlates with the information, meaning that your documentation that you have, the company records. It's not just also on paper, but on site is not happening. So with my experience, they all usually start with a site walk. We check, they do the observations, they write down everything, they take employees' names, and then they come back, they check the records to check if the employees are on the register for the induction. During the audit, they ask for induction records, need to produce, and they check the names that they've taken down. They might check also the serial numbers they've taken down for all the equipment on site, step ladders, or everything that they have observed, everything that they have noted down. They will come and verify if those things are in place also in the health and safety management system. So at the end of the audit, so that is the audit process steps. The last step is the feedback. At the end of the audit, there is a verbal feedback, where there will be senior management and everybody that was involved in the audit, they will be giving a report. And then that will be followed by the written report, usually recommending improvements and indicating priorities and timescales. So at the end of an audit, there will be feedback. The auditor will also give a verbal one before they send. Obviously, they will send a report after maybe some few days, but they will also give us verbal or feedback that maybe you see they identified some things that we need to rectify immediately that cannot wait for the report to come back so we can close out the deviations. So some of the deviations we might have to close them immediately, and some they will give us time. So that is very important that we take the feedback session very seriously. And also when the report comes back, we ensure that everything that is in the report, we discuss with the senior management, and we also discuss with the supervisors, the people that are responsible on the ground. Because at the end of the day, I mean that those are the people who are supposed to make sure that they close out the deviations that were identified. And some of the also of the deviations will be in terms of administration. Then as a health and safety personnel, you'll be responsible also for them, but also there is some other responsibilities for the senior management. So basically, after an audit, everybody who's involved in the company will have to work together in order to make sure that they implement the action plan that will be at the last that I will discuss as well. In terms of the audit, so this is the external, this is the internal audit. So the external audit, guys, is when we call out consultants who are generally independent and will have knowledge of other organizations as well as flexible approach to the audit procedure. They may also be unfamiliar with the organization line of work and they can be expensive. So basically an external audit, guys, we know most of our companies, we have external audit to ensure that we comply with the legal, the regulations, and then also to make sure that we are not being biased, because if we do the audit all the time, we can miss some of the shortfalls that we have in our system, because obviously as each and every person, you cannot sometimes give yourselves a 50%. We also give ourselves always 90-80%, but sometimes we are being biased. So that's why we have to have external people that are qualified to come and also measure us as a company to see that are we implementing the standards that we have set for ourselves in the beginning. So those will be the external auditors. So they can come as a group, it can be an individual, and it will be planned ahead so that the company may be able to prepare for the audit, so that make sure everything is in place. And guys, let us not do things right when we know that we're going to have an audit. Let us always do the right things on site and make sure that everything is in place, because most of the time we know, especially the guys that we are in construction, when we know that there is an audit coming, we'll start with the housekeeping, making sure everything is in order, the documents, we backdate them and all those things, of which is not right, guys. We must make sure that everything is done the way it's supposed to be done. We keep up with our housekeeping, make sure that our documents are up to date so that we don't have to lie and cheat because the audit is coming. We make sure that everything that we produce to the auditor is a true reflection of what is happening in the company. So that is very important, that we need to look at that as an organization, because at the end of the day, it will not only affect you as a safety officer or the senior, it will go down to the employees on site. Because if we are not doing what we said we will do in terms of our health and safety management system, the people that will suffer the most are the employees on the ground. So in terms of the internal audit, we use the in-house teams They will provide both the continuity and cost effective, but may lead to subjective judgments, like I said, being biased and all that. So using in-house team, an audit does not need to be conducted or done by you as a safety personnel alone. You can involve the supervisors, the foremen, the management as well, so that the safety reps, so that it can be a team. You can have inputs from all the different people in the team, because sometimes if it is only you, sometimes you can just do it in the office and say everything is right. But if it's a team, we do the internal audit, we set a date, everybody, they make sure that they are available on that date and time that has been set for the audit, then that we can have a continuity. Continuity meaning that maybe after an external audit, then they come maybe after 6 months. That means the company, we don't have an audit in between those months. We need to have our own internal audit so that we can have a continuation of the audits that will be also cost effective, because if we are working for the company, we won't be charging an external fee for us conducting an audit. That will be part of our job description. So we need to make sure, and then that we also make good judgments, guys. We're not biased. If something is not working, it is not working. Then we need to come up with ways how we can make it work when we are busy conducting an audit, so that everything that we have identified, everything that we have observed during the audit, we come down together, we sit down, we discuss a way forward, how we're going to tackle all these issues. And also we can, at the end of the day, include the employees. Also, we need their buy-in so that they can be able to assist us, so that we can achieve what the company wants to achieve in terms of our health and safety management system. So, ladies and gents, the audit cycle. So we know the cycle of auditing. The first one, that yellow arrow, it's the standards that the company has set for itself. Because each and every company, you have a standard that you have set, and you have to live up to that standard that you have set for yourself as a company. Because each and every company, we set standards for the company based on what the regulations say, or the legislation, what the law says. Then we set standards for ourselves, because the standards may differ from company to company. So that's why we need to make sure we set our own standard. And the green one, it says we measure the current practice, meaning that the current practice that we have in the company, we're going to measure it when we audit. When we go around conducting an audit, we are measuring the practice, meaning also the behavior of the employees on site. What is being done, our practices, are we still upholding the standards that we have set for ourselves? Thereafter, the blue arrow, we compare the results with the standard, meaning that the results of the audit that we have conducted, we are going to measure it with the standard that we set for ourselves in the beginning, to see whether are we still on the right track, or maybe somewhere we got lost. Then we can be able to go back and see what can we rectify, and see what can we change if there needs to be changes, what can we add there, and also if there is any gaps in the system, then we need to close those gaps. That we can only be able to do if we are continuing to measure ourselves. So we compare with the standards that we have set. Then the following arrow, the purple one, it reflects the plan and change. So after that we have compared, then we have to have a plan. What are we going to do? Because we have identified if there's any shortfalls in the system, shortfalls in the procedures and everything that we have observed during the audit, and how are we going to change it? How are we going to change the all the, what can I say? Okay, how are we going to change if there needs to be a change? If certain things that we have identified on site, we see that they are not working, because some of the things, we have set maybe the standards for ourselves, and we see maybe it's been 3 or 6 months, 4 months, we have set the standards, but we're still having injury. We're still having near misses. And we identify that during the audit. We can see maybe this behavior of people working with this machine, or people working near the conveyor belt, they are still continuing to do this thing. So we have observed, we have identified that during the audit. How are we going to change that? Then we can sit down and have a plan and see how we're going to change the behavior. Maybe we need to change how we're going to change the behavior of the employees that are working on the conveyor belt. Then again, the red one, we re-audit. So we have a plan, we have made changes, we give it time, we check to see if everyone is following, everyone understands the new standards that we have set. We go back, we re-audit to see if the plan that we implemented, maybe let's say in the month of May, we go back June, we check, we have an audit, then we re-audit, we see that it goes again. So it's a continuous cycle. So we cannot break this cycle, because it has to be continuous for us to be able to know that it is working. Because if we can pull out one arrow there, then we have broken the whole cycle. Then it's not, because we have a plan, we've changed everything, then we don't re-audit. How will we know that the plan is working? So we need to go back and check if the plan is working. In terms of the items, these are some of the examples of the items that might be included in the audit sheet. So the audit sheet, they can ask for machinery and tools, your equipment, like I said, material handling and storage, hand and portable power tools, organization and administrative procedure, working and then also working and working surfaces, your housekeeping, fire protection and safety, emergency response, radiation and hazardous chemicals, electrical hazards and hazard signage, PPE. So guys, these are some of the items. It's not everything. This is some of the stuff that might be in the audit sheet. So we also need to look at those things that we're going to be having on the audit sheet. What do we need to do when it comes to us? When we are doing the audit, what can the auditor ask you, and what do you need for you to produce in terms of what the audit has asked? So that's why I say everything has to be in place. Everything has to be available, the documentations, the records for the inspections of the equipment, the cranes. We have to have the load test certificate. We have to have all the equipment needs to have the records. Basically, your PPE issue records, you have to have them in place. They're going to check also, ask you about your housekeeping, your fire protection, that will be your fire extinguishers, and also your signages that they will check when they do the walkabout on site. That's what they're going to check also when it comes to the items that will be included in the audit sheet. So I'll show you the audit sheet at the end, some examples at the end of the presentation. I'll show you some of the audit sheets that I have from the previous company. So the action plan, guys, after the audit, there may be a number of findings which require action presented in the audit feedback report. This may be classified according to their significance. So after the audit, that's why I said there will be feedback. At the feedback session, that's where they're going to tell us what we need to do, what they have observed, what they have identified, and we have to, as a company, after that, come up with the action plan. What are we going to do? So we can classify them according to the major non-conformances. Those are the ones, like I said previously, that will need urgent attention. We cannot postpone them any further. We cannot put them on hold. We need to attend to them immediately. Those are the major ones. You will see some of the audit firms, they will give us a time frame. Maybe they can say 48 hours or 24 hours. You need to rectify that because it's life-threatening. Those are the major ones. The minor non-conformances, yes, they maybe gave us a week or so to rectify them. And also, there will be observations. So some of the things, it will just be an observation. The auditor will just say, okay, this is my observation, not necessarily that the company is at fault or this needs to be changed or what. He or she will make an observation. And the audit feedback session and report is usually presented to senior management for action and praise as required. So the audit feedback session, guys, it will be a report where they present it to the senior management because they are the people who are responsible, the people who have the authority. And also, like I put it here, they have the authority and the resources to take the action where required, and may also need to adjust the organizational goals and objectives. So when the auditor gives us feedback, it is not only going to be bad things, guys. Some of the areas they will give praises where it's due, because the auditor will have to, not everything in the company is not working. Some of the things might be working, some might not be working. So where praise is due, they will give praise, and then where we need to take action, they will tell us we need to take action. And as a team, also a management team, because they are the guys who have the authority and the resources, they will delegate that we need to do this. And then in terms of this area, they will put a person who will be responsible to have changes, these changes. And also as a safety officer, obviously, in terms of the documentations, if there is some of the documents that need to be reviewed, like your risk assessment, your procedures, your method statement, that will also include you. But we know that we have teams, so we'll be working together with the responsible personnel, like your supervisors, your engineers, everyone that is responsible on the project. We'll sit together as a team with the management, and they will give us, or everyone will have their own duties that they need to do in terms of the audit out feedback or the action plan that we need to implement. Then the auditor might come back, or they might request that you send through proof that you have closed out the deviation. It will depend on the auditor, how they want to do this thing. So sometimes you find that some of the auditors, they don't prefer coming back. They will prefer you to send through the documentation to check if, but if it's something that needs to be checked physically, then they can come back just specifically for that, to check if those things are in order. Then they will send through the final report, the true reflections now that the company, this is what we have achieved, these were the shortfalls, you have closed out these deviations, and then at the end of the day, we will have the report that we of the audit that we can work from. So each and every company, we can work from those reports. So on our conclusion, guys, is that the audits, they differ from the workplace inspections in that they generally undertaken by people outside the organization who challenge whether the standards and procedure within the organizations are appropriate. Because the audit, guys, most of the time we prefer to be done by external auditors so that we can get a true reflection of whether the standards that we have set and the procedure we have set for ourselves, are they appropriate? Are we meeting the standards? Are we upholding the standards that we have set for ourselves? And audits are planned in advance and may take several days to complete. So, like I said, it's not something that they're going to say tomorrow we are coming for an audit. They will tell the company in advance so that we can be able to pay and make sure everything is in order. And some of the audits, they may take days. Like I said, they might come for the whole week, because that thing of pushing an audit in one day, the companies are trying not to pay the auditors for the whole week. They want to push everything, squeeze everything. It's not working, because sometimes we end up missing important stuff. They take place annually or even less frequently, whereas workplace inspections may be as frequent as weekly. We know the inspections, we can do them even daily, but the audits, they can be annually, like I said, or they can be 6 monthly, the external ones. But like I emphasized in our presentation, previous slides, that we can continue as a company doing internal audits so that we don't wait a long time for the external auditors to come back and audit the company. But at least we continue with our own audits so that we can make sure that the standards. So it is very important that we know that the standards and the procedures that we have set for ourselves as companies, we need to uphold them. Then auditing, it will assist us in making sure whether or not we are upholding the standards that we have set, the health and safety standards that we have set for ourselves as a company, in order to protect the health and safety and well-being of our employees. Thank you, guys. That will be the end of my presentations. Then we'll open for the, Fabian, can you hear me? We can open for the Q&As.
I thank you, Lucia. Thank you very much. Very, very well done. Let's open it up for any Q&As now. Anybody feel free to unmute your mic and you can ask your question. We'll see how we can answer it as a group. Are there any questions? Because I think the one question that was posed was answered in your second to last slide, based on what's the difference between an inspection and an audit. Something I just like to add from my side, not really a question, but just a few pointers. What I find a lot on the auditing aspect is I like to take company sheet plans, especially contractors of ours, take their sheet plans, split it up into Excel spreadsheets, and then audit them based on the pointers of what they've raised on their sheet plans. So we can also go into their relevant procedures, etc. as well. And that's sometimes one of the best tools to utilize for developing an audit protocol, because yes, we have specific audit protocols looking at legal compliance, looking at our own company requirements based on our specification. But a lot of the time, contractors get away with murder because nobody's actually checking their specific documents like their sheet plans, fraud protection plans, and relevant procedures. So it's also important that we include those within our auditing, and that's how you find that you audit every month as per the law. The legal requirements is that you must audit at least once a month, according to the construction regulations. So when we're conducting our audits, you'll find that many a time you go through your audit protocol, and then you finish your audit protocol, and all the items have been checked and verified and closed out according to the action plans. But then it's like, okay, must we start the audit again and redo the audits again? many a time you look at the points that are recurring items that you need to verify and check for. But very important is looking at the company's specific documents, as I mentioned, the sheet plan. What is the contractor saying that they're going to comply with? Because many a time their requirements are somehow different in certain areas. They would have a better criteria than the specification requires or the law requires. So we still need to hold them accountable for those pointers as well, because many companies, they also do internal audits every 6 months. So that means you're going to wait 6 months before the auditor comes and conducts an audit on that company to determine the findings within that time period. So I prefer to, as I mentioned, to conduct it in that way, looking at all their documents and developing an audit protocol specifically for that company. But that's just my 2 cents worth regarding auditing and action plans.
Hello, Khomoto.
Yes.
Hi, Khomoto. Thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
My two comments. Something that is very, very close to my heart. There was a document, ISO 19011. It's a standard that talks about audits, how you do audits and things like that, how you conduct yourself whenever you conducting an audit. I think it's very important for auditors to be professional in terms of like your planning, in terms of how you dress, in terms of how you ask questions, how do you ask for proof, and follow the process that you outlined in the cycle and all that. I think that is very, very critical for someone who wants to be in auditing. I think that will be a very good document to familiarize oneself with. It's quite detailed. The second thing that I wanted to say is the audit feedback is very, 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 very critical. Number one, what is said in that feedback somehow could be a reflection of the efforts that you have put into the system and how the system is working. Can you imagine 100 observations are raised? It might mean that the safety officer is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or the system at all, it's not working as it should. So I think it's very critical for safety professionals to be present, to be involved in that feedback session. I've been in a situation where auditors will raise things that are not a true reflection of what is happening out there. So you should be able to engage with the auditors, take criticism with class. In some instances, they are raising valid issues. And in other instances, they still need to be assisted to understand the process because they do not know the business. Lastly, the reason why you would want to be present, engaged, take criticism with class is, at the end of the day, when the report comes, it should be a true reflection of the briefing that you had in the feedback session. There shouldn't be any surprises or major issues that they did not raise during the feedback session. Thank you.
Hi, morning team. Morning Fabian, morning Khomoto. Thanks for the great info. I have few input that I want to share with you. What she said during this auditing system, I think it is good when with small companies that we need to emphasize that we do auditing on a monthly or 3 month basis, so that you get yourself familiar with this ISO system. It is very, very important of your nature of the company that you'll be doing. And also it is good, gives the your client a great percentage of what your natural business that you guys are going to be doing. And then another thing that I want to add, I see on the question of that was been written on the chat, that is it when you have a low percentage on the audit outcome? Yes, it can be stopped, and I have done that also through doing an audit on another company. Some of the companies that we do liaise with, if like a criteria, like you say, we need a score of 80% on the audit. If you get a lower from 80%, then that means your work, it must be immediately stopped because you are not adhering to the safety standard, to the health and safety standard of your client. So it must be recorded that you know what you're getting yourself as an HSE personnel, that we seriously take safety and the auditing outcome seriously. So that is my input according to the suggestion.
Yes, Sabelo, you're correct. But that must also be clarified in the beginning stages of your project, actually in your initial bid clarification and your contract documents, that must be specified as part of your exhibits, where you specify to the contractor that if their score is below 80% or 75, depending on the company criteria, then that work can be stopped. But it's also advisable that you look at the specific items that are considered as deviations or non-compliances within your audit, because certain of them might not be legal requirements and might be company-specific requirements. So you also have the discretion of saying, okay, you haven't met the criteria, but you need to meet, let's say, the legal requirements of these 2 points, ensure that this thing is in place, and then you can resume work, or we're giving you 3 days to ensure that this is rectified, and then we'll allow you all to resume. So those discretionary points need to be clarified with your contractors as well. And as I said, it's important that these points are mentioned contractually, because there's no, let's say, legal guideline or specification that determines if your contractor scores below 80%, that means you need to stop their work. Again, that's based on company specifics and your discretion as a safety professional. But you need to look at, as I said, if it's legal requirements, non-negotiable items, then yes, by all means, you are allowed to stop that work until these items have been rectified. And once they've met the criteria, then you'll allow them to continue working. But again, just by basing it only on a percentage score, let's say, is not really 100% correct. But again, it's contractual. So if your contract has stipulated, if you score below 80 or 75, your work will be stopped. There must be justification for that, because obviously there's impact on schedule, on cost, on all of those other impacts as well. So it must be justifiable to allow you to stop that work for that period.
Thanks so much, Lucia, for such an informative session. And thanks, Fabian, for the support and the team. It's Newton here. Just to add on to what Fabian has been saying, is I would like to say some companies deal with it differently, especially when it comes to the score that is the minimum that is acceptable. It differs from company to company. But where the law is involved, I think if one is to be audited, and say, for instance, you have been breaking so much of the regulations and the rules, it's quite possible that your site could be stopped due to such reasons, and which is worth it. But in some other companies, what they normally do is they will have their audit sheet, if it's an internal audit, and say, okay, this is how we have been audited by our auditor. So these are the things that we need to work on. Now it differs as well if it's a third party. A third party now shows you that, okay, this A, B, C, and D you can carry on with due to the score that you have been given. But due to your non-conformancy on these ones, you cannot continue activities A, B, C, and D as per how wrong or how you were operating. And the other thing that I just wanted to add on is that when auditors come to site, the initiative is to show you how you're doing on your site, how you're operating. Are you still within the regulations? Are you still within the law? And what exactly are you doing right and what are you doing wrong? But I found that in so many cases when I was auditing sites, when you rock up on a site, people tend to freeze. They expect, I don't know, much of a havoc when an auditor rocks up, of which the whole thing, the entire idea is to work hand in hand, the person who's on the ground and the auditor. They say, I mean, some sets of eyes are better than one set. So the reason why we invite these people to our site is because we want to see some other things that we could not point out as we are progressing with the project or whatever it might be, maintenance or whatever the case might be. So I think there is a good cause for the people on site and the auditors to be working hand in hand with a good relationship as well. So as to when these guys comes up to a site, they must, if there is something that we can rectify within that period when maybe as an auditor I'm on site, I think it's rather better and free and fair to do so.
Hi, Newton, are you still on?
Before something could happen. I think for now, let me just leave it to the other guys to finish it off. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Newton. Anybody else with a question or statement pertaining to auditing and action plans?
Hi, Fabian. Hi.
Go for it.
Hi, Michelle. Okay, Joseph, we'll go back to you after Michelle, if you don't mind that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Fabian. Hi, Komotso and everybody. Thank you for everything. I found out before our audits, as the gentleman before says, that everybody does freeze. But I've decided when I work on site, when I do, I discuss the audit process with the whole team, the workers, the supervisors, the managers. We do the VFLs, we do the DFLs. We do a once a week DFL, we do a once a week VFL. DFL is with the direct labor force, and VFL is with the managers. So they learn in the process that when we have an audit, they know that they don't need to freeze, they don't need to panic, and what is needed in the audit. And we also do daily audits. We do 2 daily audits a day, and we do it with the supervisors, with the foremen, so they also know what to expect when we have external auditor come in, and when we have auditors of our safety files, and when we have a walkabout audits with the external auditors and the clients and so on. So that's how I handle the situation for auditing on site. So everybody knows what is expected and what we should be doing. Even with the toolbox talks, when we do the toolbox talks, we do the toolbox talks and we take pictures as well and a video. So everybody knows that we are doing it, and we are rectifying our incidents and our accidents if we do have. And we also do the checklist where the supervisor or the foreman will check if the last minute risk assessment. We do it before we start the job. A last minute risk assessment defines the hazards of the job, and they're going to give it to me at the end of the day. That also shows that they are also doing checks, and they're also doing audits, because that's classified as an audit as well in the workforce. So that's what I'm saying. It makes it easier when everybody knows the importance of auditing. So we don't have that freezing process when we get told, hey, the client's coming to do an audit, or there's an external audit, or the Department of Labor is coming to do an audit. That's all I want to say. Otherwise, I'll go on and on and on. Thank you very much for everybody. To everybody.
Thank you, Michelle, and very good points noted. Yes, we also do the same. We like to let the employees know that there is an audit taking place, not to prepare the site with bells and whistles, but just for their information. And if they are stopped and asked, then I understand why they're being asked as well, based on the audits. Thank you very much, Michelle. Joseph, your turn again, sir.
Yes, I wanted to comment on two things and give others a chance. I hear a lot of young safety professionals, they get scared when an auditor comes to site. I think one of the reasons why they are scared is probably not knowing how to prepare for an audit. I think one of the things that is very critical is to understand the scope. The scope of the audit is very, very, very critical. The scope will be able to help you to prepare for an audit, and also for you to be confident in terms of all the things that you have put in place during the course of the execution of your safety responsibilities. So it's very, very critical for one to have the scope clearly defined before you go for an audit, because that helps you to arrange the teams that you need to help you, to get the documentation together, to plan the whole visit, to make sure that it goes very well. The last thing that I wanted to comment on is some companies do have systems to track action plans. So if you can afford, you can invest in a system or use your Excel sheet, but all your observations and actions, if they are put formally in a system or in an Excel sheet, they are easy to remember, they are easy to manage. In terms of systems, some of the systems you can synchronize, or you can program them to say, if an action has not been closed within a month, it escalates to the senior manager. In that way, it reminds everyone, and it makes sure that everyone does their bit to make sure that observations are closed. The closure of observations is not solely the responsibility of a safety practitioner, but you monitor and facilitate the closures. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Very well stated there. And you are correct. I think a lot of the time the people fear because of not knowing and being inexperienced as well is also some of the factors. But I agree with you. Your auditor needs to send you a schedule with agenda for the day of the audit, as well as the audit protocol in advance, so that you can be prepared for the audit. An auditor is not about catching a person out, and that's something that everybody needs to get out of their mindset when it comes to auditing. It's not about catching people out and making them look bad. It's about finding the gaps in the system and closing the gaps. That's why you find that companies do what they call a gap analysis. So the gap analysis is first conducted to identify the gaps, put an action plan in place, fix them, and then you call the auditor again to conduct either ISO 45001 audits or 9001, whatever audits is being conducted, to ensure at the end that all items required according to the standard audit protocol has been addressed. So thank you very much, Joseph, for that as well.
Pleasure, man.
Any other questions or statements before we close?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Nadia.
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if it was covered earlier. I wanted to find out if for us application.
Sorry, Nandi, you broke up on my side. I don't know if the others heard the question, but I didn't hear a word that you said there. I don't know if you can repeat it, please.
No, we didn't hear the question.
Okay. Can you try again, Nandi, please?
Okay, I wanted to find out if, for me as a junior safety officer, do I have to have a qualification of some sort?
Look, it depends. Let me break it down to where, when it comes to auditing itself, there are courses that you can go on. There are accreditation courses and those things that you can go on. But that's more in line with if you want to become an auditor. But it is good to have an auditing course because it gives you much better insights as to what is required from you when you are being audited. But whether you need to be qualified as an auditor, if you've been audited by a client or contractor or Department of Labor per se, they will not ask you for your credentials in auditing. So to answer your question, no, legally you do not need to have a qualification in auditing, but it is advisable that you have auditing experience and some training behind it. If you want to go into auditing as an auditor yourself and be registered as an auditor, then yes, you have to conduct an accredited auditing course, and it needs to be aligned with, let's say, international standard or your SABs, etc., South African Bureau of Standards.
Okay, thank you so much. I would also like to thank the comment that was made by one of the members when they said that we don't have to be scared when there's an upcoming audit, because before the lockdown, there was an upcoming audit that was supposed to be conducted. So I was a bit nervous, and I really felt like they're gonna catch me out and see if maybe I'm applying or I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a safety officer. So it really did put my mind at ease to know that they are not there to catch you out.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, obviously they're not there to catch you out, but it doesn't say that you will not get a bad report if the findings are not or stacked against you, let's say. So obviously you still need to ensure there's compliance. One of the ways that I've learned through the years, and I'm talking to others that will take the advice or not, when you get a protocol, develop your audits according to the protocol. You can have a separate file that you can stipulate. So if 1.1 says company policy, then you put your policy under 1.1. And then you have your dividers between it. You can have maybe 2 files, but that would be your audit file for that specific client that you're working for, that will audit you according to that protocol. So that's just some advice that I use as well, and it's worked very well for me through the years, is that you prepare your audit files according to your audit, and that's what you basically give the auditor when they come to see you. And then basically after that, it would be site review or site inspections, and then from there you'd have a closeout with them, and then findings will be presented, and then your action plan will follow, as Lucia explained in our training as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Hi, Fabian.
Hi.
Marvin McKenzie, yeah?
How's it, Mouse? You can go ahead.
Good. Can I just make a quick comment? Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I hear a lot of the comments that have been going around here is about a person that's been audited. I think the behavior of the person that's been audited, the person that is feeling nervous, or the person that is feeling scared, most of that behavior is generated by the auditor themselves. A lot of auditors, when they're on construction sites, have a mentality of auditing. Some people have a bully mentality, and this is the reason. This is what develops this nervousness and the scaredness around people. So there's people that have a bully mentality. I heard on the earlier comments, if I can just go on. We spoke of the different audits that are being conducted. And a gentleman says that, yes, you must audit at least once a month. As an organization, to find out your organization's self-compliance, you yourself must do an internal audit. You yourself must do a self-audit on yourself, and you must score yourself accordingly. So the organization that you are working for will give you the audit protocol. They'll give you their own internal audit protocol where you'll audit maybe your subcontractors and so on. You yourself, you must audit yourself on your arrival. When you audit yourself, you will already see the gaps in your audit on what you need to catch up with, or what you need to do, or what you need to comply with. Remember, we've got an internal auditor who is yourself. Somebody spoke about training earlier on. Yes, it is advisable. It's not legal. It's not a legal requirement, as Fabian mentioned, but it is advisable for an individual to at least have internal auditors, because your external auditor would normally ask who's doing the audits. After he asks you who's doing the audits, he's going to ask you, do you have some sort of training to do the audits? So it is advisable to have that, to have the training on with yourself. It also gives you a broad spectrum on how an audit needs to be conducted. So we need to also, they were speaking about the scoring earlier on, 80%, 90%, whatever percentages that the company looks for. Whenever I join an organization, if that criteria of closing sites and stopping work is not in place according to me, then we will visit the compliance. Are we compliant as an organization or not? We need to understand the purpose as well of the audit. We need to look at compliance in terms of the regulation, in terms of the minimum requirements from the client, in terms of external requirements such as your Department of Labors and stuff like that. So sometimes there's surprise audits, so a person's not able to prepare for the audit. Sometimes Department of Labor just lands on your gate and says, listen, we're here for audit, we're coming in. So you've got to open the gate. You cannot tell them, no, we're not coming because
Not really.
send me a protocol. You tell them, come in and you get the audit done. So it's advisable for every safety professional to visit themselves first as a self-audit. Audit yourself. Even if you get a company that is working next to you and you've got a friend or you know somebody that's working there, call them in. Let them come and assist with the audit so that they can assist you. So yeah, internal audits, self-audits is important for a safety professional.
Thanks, Marvin. Thanks for the comments as well that I can see. Thanks, Sharon. That's true what you've indicated there. Any other comments before we close?
Basically, they will more.
Nothing else. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Lucia, again, for your time and efforts and for an excellent job. Well done. Thank you very much. I will send the recording to everybody that would like to watch after this if you missed anything. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.